3 up, 2 across, tap that play button 3 times, and walk through the archway into Dialogue Alley. Hello and welcome to the podcast. Dialogue Alley is a show about Harry Potter books, book translations, and all other things magical. I'm Erik from Nocturne Erik, and with me is Carly from All the Pretty Books and Melanie from the Harry Potter Collection. And today we also have a guest. His name is Patricio. Hello, Patricio.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
There's a lot of things to read in that opening blurb.
You did so good, though.
I'm a little upset that you didn't say hola. I did put that in the... I did put that in the notes. I even bolded it.
I was expecting it.
I'm upset.
You got caught not reading?
I don't look at that part. I haven't memorized at this point in time. We're on episode 20.
Episode 20? I can't believe it.
Well, I didn't do so hot when I read it, so you did good. I didn't remember my name.
I think if we have 2 minutes of leftover time, we should just upload all of your attempts to read the opening paragraph.
All 9 when I kept saying I'm Erik or whoever
hilarious.
I was.
Hi, I'm Erik.
Even had it typed out where it said I'm Carly in bold letters, but
I've gotten so used to hearing Erik say hello, I'm Erik, that I was hearing it in my head, and then I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't stop it. It didn't work out.
It made for a good laugh.
It was fun to edit.
It did. So, on this episode today, we're going to go into a lot more detail on the Spanish books. If you listen to episode 19, Melanie and I talked about all of the books that we consider official translations as part of our list of 95 books that we collect for Philosopher's Stone versions. And on that list, we mentioned that there were 3 different Spanish books that count on that list. But Patricio's here to talk a little bit more about those books and even some more information because he is a native Spanish speaker. So, Patricio, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about maybe what you collect.
So, I am Patricio. I am 30 years old. I am from Buenos Aires, Argentina, and I consider myself part of the Harry Potter fandom since I was 10 years old. I remember the first movie wasn't out yet when I started reading the books, and I remember I connect to the internet. The first thing I searched in Yahoo was Harry Potter, and since then I've been a fan and I've been following everything Harry Potter related. And I started to collect Harry Potter in 2007, I think, when the last book came out. I started collecting, to be honest, because I have a friend, a really good friend who collects Stephen King's books. And I went to his house and he has still a room with 1,000 of books. Rare editions, first printing, signed books, and I said I want the same with Harry Potter. So that was like the spark in me. And then I've been collecting Harry Potter books in English, and I don't collect many translations. I try to focus more on J.K. Rowling writings. So if she wrote an article in a newspaper or magazine, I try to have it. The same with interviews, books where she wrote a foreword, stuff like that. I try to archive everything. That's
wow.
in what.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's super cool. And I had no idea that it was all because of your friend with the Stephen King collection.
Yes,
you'd mentioned him in some of our chats.
I think
I didn't realize that was your jumping off point. That's awesome.
Yes, I think another friend of me and Carly, Adam, mentioned something about Stephen King, and I just mentioned that. But yeah, it was him who introduced me in this craziness of collecting books. Yeah, it's his fault.
Welcome. We're glad you're here.
Yes, it's his fault. Thank you.
And I'm glad you mentioned all the archiving things that you do with different pieces that J.K. Rowling has written, because you actually wrote a book yourself was it about that, or was it about something else? What was the book that you wrote about?
Yes, the book I wrote in Spanish 4 years ago. Well, I've been reading for more years, but it was published 4 years ago. It was about the Harry Potter phenomenon, but not the content of the books, but outside. I mean, I had the chance to interview people from her agency. I mean, her literary agency, Christopher Little, who worked with her in the first years, people who saw the first manuscripts of the books, people who work at Bloomsbury, the British publisher, at the Scholastic, people who work in the films, in the movies, David Heyman, for example, the movie producer, people who work in the theme parks. So it's like a recollection and the history of everything that happened related to Harry Potter.
Wow.
So yeah, that's
awesome.
the book.
I would love to read that.
I know. Is that only in Spanish, or can we read that in English somewhere? Because
only in
super
Spanish right now.
Yes, it's only in Spanish right now. Hopefully in the next months, might be published in English. I had to make like a kind of deal with my own publisher to get the rights back because they kind of hide the international rights. So I kind of have to purchase them back, and now I can self-publish it in English. But yes, if everything goes okay, it should be out in the next months.
Wow,
I'd love a signed copy.
Yeah, same. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you.
I'd love a Spanish copy. I don't need a Spanish copy.
So yeah, that's my background.
Very cool. Well, should we start talking about Spanish books? I think the three of us have a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
We do.
All three of us, I think we should mention first that Sean Potterglot from Canada.
Oh, I'm so glad you went there because I was hoping that would be brought up.
Yes. So he has written a pretty fantastic article in English on his website, Potterglot, kind of detailing his quest to catalog or just understand the differences between all of the different Spanish versions. And I really think that because he's the one that has made the Wikipedia page, he's the one that's kind of curated kind of master lists of different official translations, that he is the one that ultimately has made this decision that there are three main Spanish books.
Yes.
So I don't know, Patricio, if you read that article that he posted on his site?
Yes, I read. I even discussed it with him. Okay. It was a great resource. But I think there are minor differences. I mean, I think we need to make something clear when we talk about the Spanish books, and it's that the publishers, MSA or Salamandra now, they never say anything official about these translations and different dialects. So everything we know is it's like theorizing about them or checking the books ourselves. So there is no official information about them, except maybe another interview they gave or stuff like that. In my opinion, you mentioned 3 versions of the books. In my opinion, there are many more for different dialects in Central America. But the history of the Spanish books, it's a complete mess. I mean,
so how much of it can you tell us about? I mean,
I can from the beginning. I will try to be as quick as possible. I know this is not an infinite podcast, but the story starts with MSA, which was a publisher here in Argentina, very famous. They had a lot of famous authors like Hemingway, Stephen King, etc. And they had this little, I don't know if this is the right word, but like the Spanish house of MSA was in Spain, but was much smaller. And it was run by one of the sons of the MSA director, right? So we had MSA, the only one MSA in Argentina, and MSA España in Spain, but it was much smaller. And this MSA España was the one that got the Harry Potter rights, but they have to give it to MSA in Argentina. So even the rights were gotten from Spain. The first edition of Harry Potter was published in Argentina by MSA. Is the one that I think you know it, without the borders and the serif font in the cover. That's the first version, that first paperback.
Right.
And was that book printed in Argentina as well?
Yes.
Okay.
That's printed in Argentina, and it's the first edition. I think there were only 5,000 copies.
Oh, wow.
Okay, wow.
Yes, and then it was I think a few months later, it was published in Spain in hardback, but by MSC Spain. The design is the same, but it already has that yellow border, right? So
Right.
MSC was published in Spain by MSC España, and in Argentina it was published by MSC Argentina or MSC, only MSC. And in, I think, the year 2000 or 2001, I'm not sure, MSC Argentina was going to be bought by Editorial Planeta, which is like a really big publisher, like, I know, Macmillan or something like that, but in Spanish.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So MSC Spain, which was part of MSC, said, we don't want to belong to Planeta. So they kind of bought back their part of the company and became an independent company. So MSC disappeared or was absorbed by Planeta, and MSC Spain remained and was renamed into Salamandra. They picked that name, Salamandra, because of Fahrenheit 451. Which they have the salamander, I think, is in the firefighters' uniform, something like that. It was like a metaphor against burning books, something like that.
Yeah, yep, exactly.
So they picked that name, and they continued publishing Harry Potter from Salamandra. It was a really small publishing house in Spain with the Harry Potter rights, and they published from the next books. A few things to mention: the first books were published by MSC, so they had to redo everything to publish under Salamandra. That's why they published that box set, yellow box set. I think you own it, Carly. That was Salamandra saying, okay, we are now the owners of Harry Potter in Spanish. We published this box set with the first 3 books, and from now on we are going to publish the rest of the books. And since Salamandra was a small publisher in Spain, but they had to distribute the books in whole Latin America, they used another distributor as Océano in Central America and Riverside Agency in South America, in Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, and Paraguay, I think. So that's the short version of the story of the books and why they were first as MSC and then as Salamandra.
Wow. That's
a lot.
I omitted.
That's a lot of new information that I didn't know.
I omitted a lot of details, but yes, that's like the big picture.
I've seen on eBay pictures of like book 1 with like edition Salamandra MSA, like the 2 publishers' names are on it.
I think that's a fake version. I think I saw it too. It's like the Salamandra edition without the borders.
Right.
That's fake. That never happened. That's someone who printed at home and put that cover on it. Yes, no.
Why would they do that?
I don't know, but that never happened. I like completely sure, 100% sure.
So Carly, that's a really good segue into something we were talking about when we were testing our audio before you joined the call. Like I was telling Patricio that like I bought a lot of my books in Mexico when I was living in Mexico, and I was asking him about the Océano sticker that's on it, but then he was telling me what
I have one of those stickers.
I have another sticker on it too that's kind of like a hologram, and he was telling me about what that means as well.
Yes, Salamandra decided to put that hologram Harry Potter logo, and to distinguish themselves from the fake copies or forged copies, because here in Latin America, a lot of people like were getting the PDF from internet, print the books at home, put some covers and sell it in street markets or stuff like that, places like that.
So I've seen that.
Yeah, so they didn't want to. I mean, they didn't want to. That was the word to fight them, right? This is the real book. If you see the hologram, you can trust this book and this seller. So yeah, that's why they start doing it in, I think, 2002, 2004. I'm not sure of the exact date, but yeah, that was the reason behind them.
My Southern Cone has those.
At least 2002, because that's when my...
Yeah, and I think they only did it in paperback copies, right? Because the hardback, they were not faked. It's hard to fake a hardback book, so yeah, they only need to take that measure with the paperback copies. Yeah. I mean...
How can I tell if I have a fake? Like, I've got some of the early MSA Spanish books 1 through 3, and they're just horrible. No. Like, the text blocks are falling out of the covers.
In the covers, I don't know if the text... I mean, I never saw the original MSAs, fake editions of them. I saw the fake editions of the Salamandra ones, the ones with the border. You have to remember that the first Harry Potter were printed without too much hope, so the quality is not the best.
That's true. So, I still may send you pics later, though, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure, of course. Yes, no problem about that. But yes, I mean, the first MSA editions were not... They were not high quality, not even in the translation. I mean, the first translation of Philosopher's Stone, it's really bad. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of people sent letters to MSA complaining, and they had to change the translator before the second book.
I was looking at that, and I think maybe we could talk about that next. Is that so? I noticed that there are 4 translators that they've used. So the first woman, she only did book 1.
Yes, Alicia de Lepiane. Yes.
Yep,
she was, just to give a little of context, she was
go ahead.
A poet here in Argentina. I think she's alive. She's really old now. I'm sorry for that. She was a poet here in Argentina, translator, but never of children books. And she worked a lot with MSA, with a lot of these famous authors that I mentioned before. And she was given Harry Potter, and I think she didn't take the job as a children book, right? Because if you have the first printing, or at least the first printings of Harry Potter in Spanish, you will see she didn't translate things like The Leaky Cauldron or Dialoguealley. If you read the book,
left like all the proper nouns are just left
in English, which they make sense for things like Gryffindor or Hogwarts, right? But for The Leaky Cauldron, it doesn't make sense to not translate it. So she didn't translate anything, and it created a lot of confusion in the children who were reading the books. Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think the only other reason that you wouldn't translate something, and I know that other translations have done this on purpose, is if they know that later on in the book that something, like we always go back to the Chamber of Secrets, the anagram for Tom Marvolo Riddle is I am Lord Voldemort.
Yeah.
So some languages, they just couldn't come up with a good way to do that. So they left kind of those words in English. But they were proper nouns anyway, so there wasn't really a translation for them to begin with.
Yes, I agree on that. But yes, the translation of Harry Potter were always really criticized by the fans. I am not sure if they are fair with the reviews of the translation, but the fans overall never liked them. Right? Like they sent letters to Salamandra with every new book, etc. I think it was a bit unfair, but the fans, I mean, if you ask the fans in Argentina and in Spain, they will tell you the translation are not good.
Okay. And so did she translated the book, and she's Argentinian.
Yes.
So then did someone have to then change that for like the Castilian Spanish version?
Yeah, to adapt it maybe?
Or how does that process of adaptation work?
Well, for the first book, what happened was when they published it in Spain, they changed the dialect, but it's not that many changes. Basically like changing from British to American English when you are in a kid's book. I don't know how to say this in English, but in Spanish, maybe Erik, you can explain it better. We have 2 forms of you, like the formal version of you, usted, and the informal, which is vos. That's the thing you need to change between Spain and Argentina, most stuff, anything. But the rest should remain the same. So it's not many changes that you need to do to publish it in Argentina and in Spain, for example.
Right. Yeah. It's just you can use different verb conjugations before the individual or the group that you're talking about.
Yes.
So that's a very easy thing to go through and notice if a verb is conjugated in a certain way.
Yes.
You just say it would be like me as an American reading a British book and saying, we don't say that, we say this.
Yes.
Like even if I'm not really familiar about how they use it, I just know it should be
exactly.
this because that's what I use in America.
And one thing is that this is common for all the books between South America and Spain. It's not just for children books. I mean, any book that is published in Spain and in South America has this differences. So it's not that they had to learn how to do this for Harry Potter. They were used to do this for every book.
That makes sense. And Melanie and I talked about this last week, just between the British and the English books. Mm-hmm. If you're an adult and you've heard people speak Spanish from all over the world, if you've watched movies or if you've watched TV shows or just listened to music even, like you could read the other one and do fine, just like I can read the British one and do fine. But because this was aimed at children who weren't necessarily at that level of international language exposure with that language, that's a huge reason that needs to be adapted for kids, right?
Yes. Yeah. Then came Chamber of Secrets, which I don't know if you are aware, but the title is already different. The translation is like the Secret Chamber. It's not the Chamber of Secrets in Spanish. So
yes.
I don't know why they did this, but honestly, I like it more. Because the chamber is in a secret place, so it makes sense for me to be a secret chamber. I don't know if the chamber has many secrets. I think they already knew what had it, or I don't know. For me, when I was a child,
there's one secret in there. There's a big snake.
Yeah,
that's the secret.
For me, it made sense when I was a child.
Spoiler.
Yes, sorry for the spoiler. And I don't know if you have it with you, but if you check the book, you will see that at least the first versions don't have a translator. They have two letters that says N, and no one knows who works on them, which is really weird.
Huh. That's really weird. I'm going to go check my books when I get back.
Yes. I can send pictures, of course, after this, if you want to share on Instagram or whatever.
Yeah.
But yes. The first printing, they have two initials, and no one knows who they are.
Huh. Maybe like a translation group?
I'm not sure. I thought maybe they used the same translator as the first book, but they didn't want to say it. But I talked to this translator. Yeah, but I talked to this translator I interviewed her for my book, and she didn't say that. I forgot to ask, that's the truth, but she didn't mention it. And for the type of answer she gave me, she would have mentioned if that was the case. So I don't know which is the truth behind that two initials, NN. And the same happens, I think, with the third one, which there are two initials, which are M and C, which is the name of the publisher in some sense, because MSA is just how you pronounce MC in Spanish.
Oh, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and it was the initial of the original founders of the publishers.
So it almost sounds like they used a translator group, at least for the first two, or that was what they were alluding to. Well, I've got more questions. Keep going.
No.
I've got so many questions.
Yes, I have a lot of questions too. And I think, then that was the last one by MSA. Then came Salamandra, and they changed everything. They had another translator. They had a person here from Argentina who received the translation made in Spain. And she had to accommodate everything for Argentina and for Central America. So this person in Argentina, who is a journalist, was the first one who had to make these different dialects in the Spanish version, right? So she created a 60-page guide with every change and every place where they had to put things different, and work on the first 4 books. So she had to take all the previous books, make them all together make sense, and Salamandra republished them all corrected. So that was her
my
job.
next question, if they corrected the text block.
Yes.
Translations.
Yes, they corrected all. It didn't make sense.
Okay.
Yes. And another thing I should mention. By the way, this is really interesting, at least for me. I think for all of you too, because you really like the cover artwork. If you have the MSA version and the Salamandra version of Azkaban, I don't know who owns it, but if not, you can check on Google Images.
I do. I have both.
I think I have both.
I only have Salamandra.
Okay, Carly, do you have them together with you? No.
No, they're up in my apartment in McKinney. But if you'll give me what to look for, I will totally look.
I'm going to try to grab mine.
Okay.
Okay,
let's
Melanie,
wait. Let's wait for Melanie. This is, for me, the moment I noticed this was really weird.
I'm really enjoying listening to this. Like, I'm getting lost in listening that I'm forgetting to comment.
Thank you.
Me too. I'm sitting here so quiet.
Thank you, guys. I hope you understand me. I already apologize for my English.
No, you're fine. You're totally fine. We totally appreciate your time, and we have so many questions about the Spanish. All we really know is what Potterglot put together, and it's such a rabbit hole.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, I'm sure every language has a lot of backstory. And
I'm sure, but Spanish seems to be the most overtly confusing.
And the truth is that not many people, not even here in Spain, know this because the publisher never cared to explain it. They just keep publishing it, and there was never an official voice or an official press release explaining all of this.
I wonder why. So all of this you've had to put together on your own. Interviews and asking questions.
I'm not sure why either. Maybe they just think no one cares, that we are just a group of crazy people playing mystery.
Well, a lot of people think that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I don't know why I never care about this. Maybe the thing is, Salamander is it was a really small publisher. When the Harry Potter books were published, there were not more than 20 people working on it, and not all of them full-time. Wow. So it was a really small publishing house. They had a lot of contracts with distributors in all over Latin America, but the publishing house was small. So maybe that's the reason they didn't have time for this.
And it seems like Harry Potter was published by a lot, like around the world, by smaller publishers anyway. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And, and I'm fascinated by the publishing histories of things. It's one of the reasons why I like to collect the proofs, the proof copies, the advanced reader copies, things like that, is because I'm fascinated by the publishing history of the books, as well as, the artwork and stuff like that. But it's the story behind the book that I think is so fascinating.
Exactly.
And it's fascinating to hear Spanish kind of explained. And, the record keeping with like Bloomsbury when it was first, when they were first publishing Potter was very poor. They were very small and they didn't think it was going to be what it was. So they just didn't keep the records. And I'm guessing this is somewhat similar anyway with Salamandra.
Yes. In fact, when they bought the rights, the deal was Christopher Little gave the book to this woman called Sigmund Freud, something like that. She was from Brazil but living in Spain, and Christopher Little was asking for $10,000, and MSA was saying max we can do is $5,000. Christopher Little say no, but MSA liked it so much that say okay, $7,000. More than that we cannot do it. And Christopher Little agreed on that. So they bought the rights for Philosopher's Stone for $7,000.
Oh, wow.
Not much. And they were one of the first to do it.
Yes, they translated in 98. The book was published in 97. There were only a few other languages that made it in 98.
Yeah, and if you check, when Deathly Hallows was released, J.K. Rowling published a letter on her website. She thanked this Spanish couple, which were the director of MS Spain, for trusting in her book. So their names are there in this letter by J.K. Rowling. The man really was cool. Pedro del Carril, if you want to look for it, and her wife was Sigmund Freud, something like that. I don't remember her exact name. But yes,
That's really awesome.
They are on Rowling's letter. She really liked them. And there is this rumor as well that Rowling trusts the casual vacancy with Salamandra as well, right? So Salamandra published the Spanish version of the casual vacancy because they were like friends with Rowling or her agency.
Yeah.
But the Cuckoo's Calling was not published by Salamandra because they didn't know it was by Rowling. So when the second book came out by Robert Galbraith, Salamandra got the rights, and something happened there, a deal, nobody knows. But Salamandra got the rights also for the first book, which was already published by another publisher.
You're making me want to collect the Spanish translations of the Robert Galbraith books now. I just want you to know.
Oh, no.
I know, I can't.
No.
Space.
Don't
but I'm just telling you, like, I would love to do that. Like, so thanks.
Well,
if this shows up in my Instagram, it's your fault.
There is something fun about sorry, maybe I'm going into other topics, but there is something fun about the Robert Galbraith translation, and that Salamandra did proof copies for them. In Spanish, yes, they are really nice, and they are the only proof copies made by Salamandra for any Rowling book. So they are quite special.
Well, now you're making me really want to do it.
Yeah,
so.
I know.
I was going to say,
I
Carly
felt I
just
need to
pulled up
mention that.
eBay.
Patricio, do you own those?
Yes, I have the one for the second one, the Silk World, and Career of Evil, the third one. I didn't
Did she
have
put
the
out
one.
any signed Spanish Galbraith books? I'm just curious.
Carly's
sorry,
about
what?
to search everything.
I'm
trying to
asking
find
for a
these books
friend.
now.
I swear.
I think, no, she didn't. No.
Okay, that makes me feel better.
But yeah, they are really nice. You should start, Carly. Yeah.
When these show up in my Instagram, I'm probably going to send you hate mail.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Okay.
I will blame you for the reason that I started to collect. Because if I collect the Spanish translations of the Robert Galbraith books, I've got to collect them all.
Yeah. Yes, you have
And
to
that's
collect
just,
them.
I'm
be
already
collecting
out of
any
shelf
of these.
space. I'm already out of shelf space.
I am full.
They republish them with different covers, so you will have multiple sets as well.
They did. I know they're beautiful. I see them on eBay. And I'm like, my goodness.
But they did it in
Melanie's
Spanish too.
ears just perked up.
So, Melanie, you have both books now with you?
Yes, I have them both in front of me, and I already see what you're going to talk about.
The face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
Okay.
Harry and Hermione are completely different.
Yeah.
Really? I need to be at home to
Nobody
look at my
noticed
books.
that. Yes, nobody noticed that because the illustration is the same, but they changed the face a bit. And so the listeners can take 10 seconds to Google and Google Images Azkaban MC and Azkaban Salamandra and put them side to side and see the differences. For me, the most interesting part or the fun fact on this is that I asked Dolores Avendaño, who is the illustrator of the books, about this, and she wasn't aware of this.
Wow.
Whoa.
Wow.
That was the reaction.
So who did
reaction I was
this?
expecting.
Who changed?
Nobody knows. That's
Many
that's-
mysteries.
Yes, that's the weird part. Dolores and Daniel was not aware of this, so they did it digitally, I guess, in Salamandra. I don't know. That remains a mystery. No, nobody knows why they changed it. It's not clear for me. I don't know. I mean, I still prefer the original one. In fact, the one in MSA.
I do too.
I just looked them up. So the original one is where Harry seems less happy, right?
Yeah. Yes, that's true.
He's a little more surprised.
Yes.
And the second one, he's having a great time.
Yeah. Yes, I think also the one in MSA, it's a bit more childish. I don't know. And
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
In Salamandra, it looks more like a teenager. But I don't know. That's the only reason I think could be.
Wait, so I have...
Yes.
Wait a second.
I think you're getting them
Okay,
mixed
so-
up, Eric.
Well, I have the Salamandra and he's happy.
No.
That's what I have. I have Salamandra and he's happy.
Salamandra paperback.
Yeah.
Because yes, that's possible.
And then because I'm looking on Google, they have the Salamandra, and it's the orange border, and he has the different face.
Now I when I get back to my books on the 30th, I'm gonna tell you what I've got because I've got both as well.
It's like the Bertie bots. You don't know what you're going to get.
Oh, right, because there are just so many versions of these books.
Yes,
Do you
it's
think
a completely
covers
mess.
were used to help indicate different different dialect changes, maybe?
I think it's more about the time because the Argentinian versions after I think 2001 has the digital altered cover. So I think it's more about the time. I think the weird face or the second one means Salamandra already owns everything in Harry Potter, and MSL in Argentina doesn't exist anymore. I think that's more about the timeline, not about the dialect.
Okay.
Then I'm gonna throw a wrench in there and say my book is from 2010, and I bought it in 2011, and he has the happy face.
Then I don't know. Sorry.
And it's paperback, and it's Salamandra.
I don't know. So you are giving me this is not good, Eric. You are creating more questions.
I bought it in a department store in Guadalajara, Mexico.
No, I mean it's possible. I honestly don't know. I even suspect they don't know the real reason. They maybe have different covers. I don't know. They now publish the ones with Johnny Dudley. So
yeah,
I don't know if they don't plan to use Avendaño's artwork anymore, but yeah. It's weird. It's weird. What happened with the Harry Potter covers is really weird. The first three, Avendaño told me she never picked the scene to illustrate, right? The art director told her what to do. And the first three books, it's pretty obvious, but they are all based on the American covers.
Right.
Yeah.
So
it's just interpreted a little bit differently.
Yes, but they try to do the same. The first one is like the one where you can see that more clearly. It's Harry flying there somewhere, and you have different objects from the book. But for the fourth one, this art director, they start to work on the book for MS Argentina, for Goblet of Fire. And Dolores Avendaño made a cover which was completely different for the one that they end up using. So Dolores Avendaño had to do two different covers for El Cáliz de Fuego or Goblet of Fire. And it's the other one, the one that was not used, I think it's much better. It looks like the one from Bloomsbury, from the British edition by Greenfield. It's like more a panoramic view of the first task.
Oh,
it's not like closer to Harry's face. And she told me that after Salamandra got the rights in that year, and the Harry Potter films start to be released, Salamandra wants to have like Harry's face really big in the cover. So you can identify the scar and the glasses and etc. So that's why from the fourth book up to the seventh one, Harry's face is in the front of the cover, like in big, much bigger than the first three books. It was more a marketing decision that changed.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes, and they were always inspired by the American covers. For me, which is like a copy, is the Beedle the Bard. If you have the Spanish version and the American edition. They are quite similar. I mean, it's like a copy of that. I really like Dolores Avendaño. I consider her a friend of mine, but this is like, you just copy that. So
I really like the Spanish Beedle the Bard. I don't collect the Beedle the Bard translations. I just have a bunch of them.
Oh,
I have them too. I think, Carly, you and I were sort of trying to collect them for a while. I only have the ones that all the cover art are unique. I have the unique cover art of Beedle the Bard ones. So I have the Spanish and the American English one.
Right.
They are pretty similar.
Yes. The style is the same.
I didn't even notice it. It's like the Mary Grand Pré one. It's like, oh, there's a rabbit and you can only see its legs. And then the Spanish one, it's like, well, let's do the rabbit's face.
Yes, yes.
So funny.
They won't notice.
I don't know why. Honestly, I don't know why, because it's I don't know the reason. In Argentina, up to the fifth or sixth book, we never saw the covers of the English or the American editions. I mean, it's really weird why they think this association was a good idea.
I think there's a lot, like I was talking actually with Johnny Iucci, the video game collector. We were talking about how the American books, he thinks, and I kind of agree, that the American book covers tend to be more iconic and more well known than, say, even the UK covers, at least in this part of the world.
Yes.
So that could be why they're trying to associate with the American covers, is to, show that they're a part of the Harry Potter franchise, as well as, if they can look similar, then they can also, be connected that much easier.
Yes, could be, or maybe they were just lazy and didn't want to think.
It could be a little bit of both as well.
Yeah.
But I think when we look at our shelves, Carly and Melanie, like, I would say from the translations that just took a cover, at least for my book once, there are more grand praise than there are Thomas Taylor.
Very much so.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So Carly, I would agree with your statement that maybe just the iconic cover, they picked that one.
Well, and then also
because
like
they thought it was more well known. I don't know.
The movie franchise itself, they used the Grand Prix Harry Potter font.
Yes.
So that could be, and that came from the U.S. books directly. So that could be part of the reason to emulate or kind of like loosely mimic the U.S. books. I'm not sure, but I would have to think it's something to do with franchising. Maybe even Warner Brothers asked to do something. If you want to do your own unique cover art, that's fine, but make it similar to this. I could see them doing that.
Yes, I agree. I agree on that. That's possible.
Once you get more people involved that have more money, you get less
freedom.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I think I will try to look for the original illustration for the fourth book, and I will share it with you guys.
I would love to see that.
That would
be great, and we could put that on our Instagram page,
for sure.
So people listening can check that out.
Once someone who worked on MSA sent me a photo of, it was like a test copy, something like that, with the MSA design or style for Cáliz de Fuego, for Goblet of Fire. I tried to buy it from him, of course, but he said he didn't own it anymore, etc. So I don't know if it was real or not, but it might be there somewhere out, like an MSA edition of El Cáliz de Fuego, which for me is like the holy grail for the Spanish collector of the books. Yes,
because that was never released to anybody.
No, and I collect books for more than 10 years now, and the first time I saw it was like 2 years ago. So this person contacted me because saw that I published this book and told me, hey, this might interest you. But yeah, I don't know if it's real. There is a lot of people trying to make, nasty stuff. So you have to be careful. But yeah. The illustration by Dolores Avendaño is, of course, real. It's now, I think the original one is in, I don't know, I think she sold it to a person in Hong Kong, but not completely sure. I can ask her, but that one was for real. Of course, she worked on it. I saw it. I can ask for a picture. It was really nice, a really nice illustration.
Really cool. I'd love to see that too. We talked about how the German books have that kind of alternate cover that they didn't use, and how, for whatever reason, I think all of us like the other picture, but
I do.
It could just be because
we just like weird things or rare things.
Yeah, we just like things that could have been. Right?
Exactly.
And if they had switched them around, maybe we would have said, "Hey, I really like that."
Exactly.
I'm sure.
We don't know.
If they do a version all black with just the title in white, for us will be better because it's rare, right? It's a different version.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's why we love the American advanced reader copy of Azkaban, because it's just the purple and black diamonds.
Yes. And the one from American that I love is the book Expo from the Order of the Phoenix.
Yeah.
without.
I love that book.
We're talking about that again. I still need.
You need that book.
Still
You
don't
need
have
that one,
it.
Eric.
I haven't looked very hard.
Okay. So now we're
Okay.
going to find you this book. Last time you said you needed the ARC of books 1, 2, and 3, I think, and you got all of them. So
Yeah, I got 2 and 3.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like this.
So, yep, that's the next one I need. So keep your eyes open, everybody. Should we talk a little bit about? I know we talked about some differences between like Castilian Spanish and the Spanish, the version in Argentina. But do you want to mention just some other differences between Latin America, Central America, and Europe, and why you think there? I mean, there are more than just 3 main versions, but like, why? What are the differences between the other ones?
As I say, and you say better than me, I think the verbs and the conjugation. I don't know if I'm saying it okay, but yes,
that's correct.
And how I think mostly of the change are in the dialogues. So instead of saying, I will speak in Spanish, but instead of saying vos, they say tú or usted, which is completely different depending of in which country you are. It is also a sign of respect, for example. So in Spanish, Harry will say usted when he's talking to the professors because it's a sign of respect. But when he's talking to his friends, he will say vos or tú. But in Spain, he might say usted all the time. So it's a bit different. And I think they had to adapt the books to every little region of Latin America, which again has a lot of dialects. In fact, if you are picky, you can find different dialects for every country and even for every province or state in each country. So,
and are those differences just very minor things like phrases, like just regional phrases, or specific?
No,
like,
I think
nouns for things.
No, I think you will understand it, but it like distracts you from the reading. If I'm reading something and Harry speaks like Caribbean or from someone from Puerto Rico, will distract me, right? I will think, Harry doesn't sound like this in my head. Harry was Argentinian in the first books, and now he speaks like someone from Mexico. It's really different. It takes you out from the experience. So I think it was a good decision from the publisher. Definitely a good decision. Yes.
Okay, so you've read the books in English, so
not all of them.
Would it?
No.
Well, you've read at least one of them.
Yes.
So
yes.
Would you say it's kind of like how Hagrid talks in a book? Like they used a specific accent for Hagrid, and they kept that in the American book. Like, would that be similar to?
Yes.
Kind of how they would change someone to talk with that sort of regional.
Yes, something like that. But I think Hagrid is over-exaggerated, right? In the way he talks. Right. But yes, it's something like that. Different sounds or different regions. By the way, now that you mentioned Hagrid, Hagrid was not translated like that to Spanish. He speaks perfectly in Spanish. So, that's really weird.
That's awesome.
So a lot of people like me who read the first book in Spanish and then went to read the rest of the book in English were really surprised when they started reading a passage with Hagrid, because I didn't understand what was happening. Say, what happened to Hagrid? Why he speaks like that? why he is? Then I found out that he speaks like that in all the books. But yeah, they didn't translate Hagrid, so it was.
That's so interesting.
And
why they made that choice.
Carly and Melanie, you'd know the answer. I believe if like the first book in British English and American English, they even kind of toned down the thickness of Hagrid's accent in some ways. Am I right on that, or am I just making that up?
Oh, I don't know. I always found his accent to be like very specific, but that's because I also hear it in Jim Dale's voice. So
I do as well.
So I feel like it's so contrasted to other characters. So I don't know.
I saw the movies before I read the books. So anytime I read Hagrid, I always read it in actually Robbie Coltrane's voice. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's one of those that I don't know if it's really exaggerated in the books or not, because I already know how Hagrid should sound in my head. So there's that bias already present. So I don't have a good answer for that. I do know that a lot of translations have made choices on how they translate Hagrid, because it's one of those that it was noticeably different in the books.
Mm-hmm.
So I know, like, in Scots, they went with Dundonian Scotch. That the translator, Matthew Fitz, is from the area that speaks that dialect. And that's what he chose to pay homage to his hometown, but also to make Hagrid sound different enough from the other Scots.
Yeah, and I think, didn't Brock mention that the Basque translation from
he said
Spain,
Basque was very
they did
different
that as
too.
well.
Yeah, and I believe a lot of other... I would actually like to... I know a few people out of Greenland. I would actually like to sit down and see what they did with Hagrid in Greenlandic, because there's several different dialects of Greenlandic, right? So I would be interested to know if they went with... well, there are. I would be interested to know if they went with any of the other like dialects out of Greenland for Hagrid, because he's one that most translators have to make a stylistic choice for linguistically.
Yeah. Yes, in fact, you just remind me, a guy I met, he was a student for translator from English to Spanish, and he had to do a thesis to end his studies. And his thesis was how to translate Hagrid to Spanish using a dialect from Argentina. So he did a huge study about one dialect in Argentina and why it was appropriate to assign it to Hagrid. And he translated a few passages. He sent me the thesis afterwards, and it was really fun to read.
Did you agree with his proposal?
Yes, because it's a dialect kind of popular in Argentina in the sense like it's a fun dialect. So if you see a celebrity from that region and he speaks that dialect, it's like, I don't know, everyone likes it. It's like a bit sing. I know how to say it. It's like people is singing when they speak that dialect.
Well,
so it looked okay.
Like a sing song. Yeah, it's like a sing song.
Yeah, and Argentinian Spanish anyway is already like dialectally fascinating. Like, for those who don't know, on my Book That Lives project, I have lots of different Spanish speakers who read the first passage, including you, Patricio. Yeah. And you sound markedly different from pretty much everybody else. And you're about 5 to 10 seconds faster than everybody else. And I lived in Spain, and I understand some Spanish. I can't converse in it, but I can understand a lot of the words. And I promise you, there is at one point that I swear you go da 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 da. There's no words because it's so fast. But Argentinian Spanish has, depending on where you're, there's roots from. I believe Italian is in there, which adds a whole different prosody than what you have with, say, Puerto Rico, Cuba, and all the other Spanish-speaking countries that I know of. You have the influence from Italian, which changes so many things, and it really shows up when you're really speaking. I just could listen to that. I listened to that. I can't even tell you how many times. It's fascinating.
Yes, and in fact, in Buenos Aires, which is the capital of Argentina, they say, I don't know this, but they say we speak even faster. And the rest of the country, and even Chile and Uruguay, neighbor countries, use that like an insult to us. Like, people from Buenos Aires speak faster, we don't understand you. So they use it as an insult. For me, I mean, it's my normal velocity, my normal speed, but I can see it when other people do it. It's normal. Going back to Hagrid, 1 second, just the last thing I want to mention about that. For a lot of people, including me, who were reading the books in English as a second language, reading Hagrid was the hardest part. It was really hard. So
I was going to say, before you mentioned that, I was going to add that when I read this book with my students, who are all non-native English speakers, and they're all learning English as a second or third or fourth language, whatever they're on, the Hagrid part is almost impossible. So whenever I read this book with kids at school, I tell them, whenever Hagrid's going to talk, I'm just going to read it to you, because like, you're not going to need to know how to read this right now in 5th grade. So don't worry. Don't even worry about it.
Eric.
I will read it to them.
That's really good. The trick I use, I was very proud when I found out this trick, but it was reading out loud
Yes.
what I was seeing, like not trying to understand what he was trying to say, just reading out loud the words or the letters or whatever. And when I was hearing it out loud, maybe I could take the meaning. I don't know. It was something like that, but I remember it worked. At least I got the meaning of the dialogue. Maybe I didn't get every part.
It's written phonetically, right? The way that they
exactly.
write how his accent is. So yeah, it's almost like if you can read Cyrillic but you can't read Russian, you can hear a word, like you can read cheeseburger and you're like, oh, it says cheeseburger.
Exactly.
Like
something like that. Yes, but it was in the end, it's a good experience, I think, because I don't know. You see how people really talks in England. They don't talk like the Queen. Everyone.
Right.
No.
Right. Oh, it's funny. Okay, so I think the last thing we should talk about with the Spanish books is, if we have time, I think we have time for this. Can you tell us about your translation of the Half-Blood Prince book?
Yes.
Because this is an amazing story. And when I found this out, when you sent me an email, I was just like blown away. So tell us what happened.
Do you have time? I mean, I have time, but I'm not.
We'll make the time.
We'll make the time. This is an
Okay.
amazing story. Like, I almost want to find a copy of this bootleg book so you can sign it.
That's not fair. But okay, I will go back before that time because I want to explain the whole thing. Back in 2003, when The Order of the Phoenix was published, there were a lot of fans in Argentina, in Spain, in Spanish-speaking countries who were crazy because Salamandra said, we are going to publish the Spanish version 8 months after, in February 2004. So we had to wait 8 months to read the book when it was already published in the UK and in the States. And
was that just because of they didn't want more people to know the secrets of what was going to happen in the book?
Yes, there were 2 reasons. The first one was Rowling or their agency or whatever didn't want to send the books before the publication date. So Salamandra worked with the final book. The second reason was Salamandra didn't want to use more than one translator, which makes sense in my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they want to use only one translator. It was a huge book, 800 pages, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
It was the biggest book I'd ever read at that time. I think I can't remember. I was probably in 7th or 8th grade. Yeah. Biggest book I've ever read.
Yes.
Yep.
So the thing is, at the time, I was part of the fandom on online forums, visiting websites like Magonlet, The Leaky Cauldron, etc. So I was going to be spoiled. I mean, I was going to know the book before even see the cover in Spanish.
Right.
So a girl from Argentina who was living in Miami in the States had a website called Harry Mania or something like that. She said, okay, we are going to get a group of fans and we're going to translate the book. And they did it. I remember I didn't have an internet connection in my house. I had a computer, but not internet connection. So I went to the internet cafe every day with a diskette. I downloaded the latest chapter that this girl uploaded to her website, and I went back home and read it on my computer. And that for me was fascinating. I mean, they translate the whole book in 1 month. Wow. It was amazing. The quality, of course, was not perfect, was far from perfect. But I read the book. I was 12 years old. I wasn't expecting the best quality of the translation. I wanted to know what happened and read the book, and etc.
Right.
So I couldn't imagine having to wait longer than the rest of the world.
Exactly. And this happened with different languages. I think different websites from France, from Germany, they did their own translations.
Yep, I know France had a problem with that too.
Yeah, they did.
So this was huge. I mean, it was on the news even. And for me, it was like, okay, this is the Harry Potter fandom, helping each other, right? Because they didn't do for the money. They did it honestly to help other people, other fans.
Right. Well, and this is how, like, in the Urdu books, there's only books 1 through 4 in Urdu, right? Carly? Melanie?
Yeah.
Yes.
1
so
through 4.
Fans
but
have
I believe there's, but You can not buy, but they exist, I believe, 5 through 7 on the internet, but they're not published.
Right, but like languages where they only stopped after a certain book, fans decided, well, that's not okay, and then those are where a lot of more fans, more fan translations exist, just because people want to know what happened.
Right.
Yes, and for me at the time, it made total sense. I was hungry with Salamandra. Because for me, like, why take 8 months? Some fans did it in one month. I know that it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for professional translator, but when I was a kid, for me, it didn't make any sense. So that happened. Christopher Little agency, Shaker agency, closed the website, take it down. But that passed and everyone forgot about that. I remember the project was called the Translator Order, which in Spanish makes more sense, but that was the name. So in the next 2 years, I created a Harry Potter fan site in Spanish with some friends, which become very popular. It was the second most popular after Harry Latino, which is still alive. It's the most important Harry Potter website in Spanish. And when the publication date for the 6th book was coming, we had this discussion, right? We were confident to be able to read in English. I was only 15. I never read a book in English where I say to me, I am going to do it. But I was worried for a lot of fans who were not capable of do that. So with the other friend who ran this website with me, we said, okay, let's do something a bit more organized. Let's create a web page called El Príncipe Traductor, which translates into the translator prince. And I remember we made this system where people could submit chapters, translate chapters. They pick, okay, I'm submitting, I don't know, chapter 3, this is the title, and this is the text. And we have like this dashboard where we could see all the chapters that people submitted and we could approve them, and they went live on the website. And we say, okay, if the lawyers come after us, I don't know, we will see what happened. But let's do this for the fans. I don't care. And I remember at the time, I still didn't have an internet connection at my home. So I kept going to the internet cafe every day. I was going like for 1 hour or 2 hours per day with several diskettes because one only wasn't enough to download all the files. And I remember we launched this on July 16th. And after a few days, we already have like 10 chapters, right?
Oh, wow.
So it was great. I remember I spent the first 2 days reading the book in English without going to the internet cafe. I didn't want to get any spoilers. I read at home. So we did this translation. It was amazing. The problem, of course, was if the 5th one was done by a group of people, this was even worse because everyone could send a chapter. So I think the first 10 chapters are by 10 different peoples. And that means you don't have any coherence between them. Yeah, exactly. But fans were super happy because they just want to read. They could understand if in some place says, I don't know, Diane Halley, and then it's translated. They knew all these minor issues, so they were happy anyway.
Yeah, they're just looking for the major plot points.
Exactly, right. Exactly. They knew they were not expecting like the real deal. They just want to read it. They knew what was happening. I don't remember the dates. I don't remember if this matched with the email I sent to you, but I think after 1 week or 2 weeks, we had all the chapters in the system. Like people translate all the chapters. So I think I got the last 10 chapters, went to my home, tried to edit them, correct them, make them all together to make coherence between them, fix all the character names, etc. And then I went back to the internet cafe and upload them, like all in one upload, in one update. And I remember people went crazy on forums. We have millions of visitors per day. Oh, wow. Yes, we made the news.
Oh, wow.
And the worst thing is one day, this is not fun now. This is fun now, not at the moment. But the lawyers take it down. Neil Blair, Neil Blair, Carly Neil Blair,
Yeah.
Rowling's
yeah.
lawyer. That was the first time he talked to me. He took the website down and he told me, you cannot do this. Salamandra is not going to take any legal action, but don't do this again. This is not right. And I remember that made the news again. Like in the news channel, they say, I know, something like Harry Potter website take down by legal action, something like that. And my dad knew it was me, and he got crazy. And he told me, "What did you do? Why?" And I explained to him, "No, it's okay. Nothing is going to happen." But he was super crazy at me. I remember that as it was yesterday. But yeah, nothing happened. But I remember we received a lot of emails from people from all over the world, around the world, thanking us for what we did. And it was a really great feeling because these people had to wait, if not 8 months or 9 months for the book, but we made it in a few weeks. And for me, it was an amazing project, and I think it showed how the Harry Potter fandom is connected and wants to help each other, right?
Right,
Exactly.
and you weren't selling this book.
Right.
We were not selling this.
Right, you just wanted to help other fans
Exactly.
Be able to
was,
read it sooner.
be able to read it.
Yes, and in fact, it had no ads, so we were not profiting from it in any way. No ads. It had nothing like we could make money. No donations, anything. We just want to make it for the people. I felt that another fan helped me with the 5th book, so I want to help people with the 6th book. The problem came later. This is how I told you this story. It's because some people got this book in PDF, printed, and they sold it like the
Yes.
original book.
I have found a copy actually on eBay, and I sent you the link for it. Did you buy it?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I mean, it was out of my budget. I mean, I'm not super. It's not on my priority list for now. If I found it someday cheaper, but it's not something I go crazy for it. But yeah, that was the problem. And in fact, that was the reason that Salamandra changed the title of the book.
Oh, wow.
Yes, because we put the name Príncipe Mestizo, which is the translation of Half-Blood Prince, and Salamandra used El Misterio del Príncipe, which is the mystery of the prince, if you want.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So,
So
they
you
changed
actually
it.
influenced the title of the book itself.
That's
Isn't
so
that crazy?
cool.
I know.
Yes, they didn't want people to confuse or think they already read that book, so they went from a different path from the title. Yes, they use a different excuse, like at the moment they say something like Príncipe Mestizo, which is the name that we use, didn't make sense, but they use that in the book. I mean, in the book you read El Príncipe Mestizo, and this book or this properties is of the Príncipe Mestizo.
Yeah, it's the title of chapter 9.
Exactly.
Right.
So they used that translation. They just didn't want to include it in the title of the book because of this. So yeah, in some way I changed the title of the book for worse.
Amazing.
That's
For worse,
awesome.
but yes. That's a funny story. Yeah.
Yeah.
But as you say, Gary, some people sold it in
Yeah.
a lot of places, and yeah, I think they did the same with the 7th one.
They did. I actually owned a bootleg copy of that one. I found it in Venezuela.
Yes,
Actually,
Venezuela was the country that did most of this stuff.
Yeah, and I was super interested. So it was really inexpensive, even with the shipping. So I just purchased it just to see what it was, and it was a knockoff, translation of 7 with the Grand Prix cover, and I actually wound up selling it to Sean McAllister.
Yeah. Yes.
Trading it. I did one of the two, but he has it now.
Yes. The thing is, Salamandra was really secretive with the covers. I don't know if the reason was they didn't want anyone to print it and sell the book before it was released. But for example, the cover for the Deathly Hallows in Spanish was revealed at the same time the book went on sale.
Oh, wow.
At midnight. Yes, they had it like behind curtains, and they opened the curtains and you saw the cover. I don't know why that's secretive with a cover, but
That's interesting.
It was their strategy. Yes, but yes, there were fun times. And they were fun times. One thing for me, the sixth book, sorry, they did some weird things. Like they also translate not only the title, but they translate Horcruxes or Horcrux into Horrocrux or Horrocruxes. Because I guess they want to maintain or keep the play with the horror in Horcrux.
Yeah, they want to convey that kind of not good vibe.
Yeah, right. But for me, the original one has that vibe, right? Horcrux, horror. I don't know.
Yeah, it's in there. It's in there enough, I think.
Yeah, but yes, they translate that, but I think overall they are good translation. If you are very picky, you can find minor issues everywhere. But in general, I think they did a good job with the books.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yep.
Well, should we keep talking about this sixth book that we all have in the translation of the show?
Yeah, I'm down.
I think so. Show is going to be book 6, the Spanish translation of book 6, and it's the official translation of it, not to be confused with the unofficial little bootleg copy that we were just talking about, which I'm still like, I've been so quiet this entire podcast because I'm sitting here like a fangirl, like with my head on my hands, just listening to every single word that's being said because I'm so fascinated by all of this.
Right?
So that's why I've been so quiet. So I'm sorry.
Sorry guys if I spoke.
Oh no, this is fabulous.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to listen to this. Yeah.
That's why it's Melanie's turn to edit, and she's gonna have no problem.
No,
all again.
I can't wait. No, this is so great. All right, so about this book. So Spanish in general is a global language. It has nearly 500 million native speakers, mainly in Spain and in the Americas. It is the world's second most spoken native language after Mandarin Chinese. And it's the world's fourth most spoken language overall after English, Mandarin Chinese, and Hindi. So that's really cool.
Yay.
It's spoken everywhere. And I feel like even here, like, I feel like everybody in the United States knows a little bit of Spanish. Like, that's, like, even if it's not, like, our L1, like, I know a little bit of Spanish. I can understand a little bit, and I definitely can't speak it as well as I could when I was in, like, 8th grade at my prime. But I think all of us can kind of, like, we could listen to a conversation in Spanish and kind of understand what's going on.
Well, how about this fun fact, Melanie? So the country with the most Spanish speakers in the world right now is Mexico with 130 million. The next country with the highest amount of Spanish speakers is the United States at 52 million.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That's so cool.
That's awesome.
That changed. It was within the last 10 years, I think. We shot up past Spain. Colombia's third, Spain is fourth.
You need to do this podcast in Spanish, guys.
I know. And Patricio, Argentina's fifth on the list, so it's in there. But
almost there.
With 44 million. So, but that was a huge deal. And so the fact that, and I tell a lot of people this in my job, but the United States doesn't have an official language. There's no official language of the United States. There's a de facto language of English. So if they had written that everything has to be published in English legally because it's the official language, then that would have to happen. However, they didn't do that. So now that we have 52 million Spanish speakers in the United States, which is about 300 million people, that's a huge chunk of that. So if they were to make an official language of the United States now, they would have to include Spanish in there as well. So, and more companies and businesses and places in the United States are putting Spanish on their products. So like cereal, you can get it's Spanish and English.
Yep.
You go literally anywhere that's public transit, it's probably in English and Spanish. So people are just, even my grocery store has signs like for what's in what aisle, it's in English and Spanish. So it's just getting to be more accepted that Spanish is a huge part of the U.S. So I just wanted to throw that out there about Spanish, that tons of people in the U.S. are now Spanish speaking. So now is the time to learn it. If you are living in the U.S., do it now.
One thing that now that you mentioned this, Salamandra, I think it was in 2019 or 2020, something like that, was purchased by Penguin.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
By Penguin.
It's Penguin Random House. Because if you go on the Wikipedia article that Potterglot has with all of the translations, when I was doing this before we started recording, and you click on the Salamandra link, it takes you to Penguin Random House.
Yes.
I was like, what? And so then I was scrolling down and I'm like, oh, they were purchased. Got it. Okay.
Yes, it was a huge news that they bought it. So I guess they are going to start, I don't know, selling the books in the States. I mean, the Spanish translation.
Well, I can go to Barnes & Noble right now and buy them, actually, with the Johnny Duddle covers.
Yeah, you can do that. And I haven't even looked at... I think they're going to keep Salamandra as the publisher, though? Like, as the,
yes, they are
as the name of it?
Yes. Yeah. It's like what happens in the State with Scholastic and Arthur Levine. Well, what happened before they... But yes, Salamandra is like the publishing house, and Penguin Random House is like the distributor, yes.
I was going to say, because when they came out with the newest Spanish covers, it's like Harry and the train on the front.
Yeah.
I bought that at Barnes & Noble in Minneapolis, and that was...
okay.
It still says Salamandra on the bottom.
Yep. No, the new ones still say Salamandra. I mean, Salamandra is still
it
working.
It says Salamandra and a yellow sticker on the bottom of the Johnny Duddle one.
Yeah. Yes. They will keep existing. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. All right, Melanie, really quick, let's take us through the scale for this book here.
Sure. Okay, so if you take your book and open it up and give it like a nice big whiff, I would say... it's like... And it's kind of acceptable. I don't know. It's nothing neither here nor there. It's like between acceptable and exceeds expectations on how it smells.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not as good as like our favorite smelling books.
No, exactly. No. I know. That's how I like really base... Like, I base my books, like, Outstanding is Slovak and Troll is, like, Bengali. Like
Bengali smells god-awful.
and the bilingual Chinese book is...
Yeah. Oh, the bilingual Chinese book, actually, that may take the cake.
Yeah, so everything else kind of falls somewhere in between. Yeah, I feel like this is just, like, acceptable.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Acceptable for me because my book doesn't really smell. I don't know how.
I also have a stuffy nose. I feel like I'm, like, maybe my judgment's off. I'll give it, like, a day or two and I'll smell it again. But I feel like I can hold firm at acceptable.
I would hold firm at acceptable if it's based on what I've smelled.
All right. Thank you.
Patricio, what was your score?
It doesn't smell to anything to me. So I think it's acceptable.
All right, that works.
This is the first time I smell in this book.
Oh, well, we smell all our books.
It's like a requirement. Once you get a new book, that's the first thing you got to do is you got to open it up.
Yes, but this one is before I think I start collecting. So I don't know. It's there. I mean, I even think this copy is from my girlfriend. So it's kind of cheating, but yeah, it doesn't smell to anything to me.
All right. Well, that's okay. And then as far as size and proportions, I feel like I like it. I would give it for sure at least an exceeds expectations. I feel like the proportions of like the length of the book, it's taller than I would say like an average book is. Mm-hmm. And it's a bit more narrow, so I feel like that's pretty nice.
I love the tall narrow. Like, it feels so good in the hand, and it opens so well in the hand.
Well, based on how it feels in your hand, which is the next in our rating scale.
I combine those two all the time.
I know, you both do it all the time. They're two separate categories, people. So, yeah, for size and proportions and how it feels in your hand, I would say exceeds expectations for both. I feel like it's a nice feeling book.
I would agree.
Yes. I agree. I agree too. We are talking, all of us, about the black edition, right? By Salamandra. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes. I think the size is almost perfect. Hardcover. Yes, it fits great.
Yeah, it's really nice. And then the quality of the book, I would give mine like an acceptable to exceeds expectations. I mean, it could just be that I have like an older copy. I think mine's like an earlier edition, which like makes sense. But mine, like my spine is like a little bit flimsy, floppy.
And the corners bump if you look at them wrong, like they dent.
Yeah.
Mine are
Mine
dented.
is too.
Yeah.
My spine corners are dented.
Yeah. Yep. So
and
I would
didn't
say
do anything to this book. I didn't even read this book.
Same. I would say mine's acceptable at best. And
I agree.
And the laminate, like it gets really dull really fast. It's not going to fall apart when you read it, which is nice. But the spine does get a lean when it's read through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would say like,
but it's also a
acceptable.
thicker book. So yeah, I think acceptable is a good rating.
And then cover art / interpretation of the cover art, like I would give it an outstanding for the cover art.
Same.
I love that it's original cover art. Like this is the cover art was done by this artist for this book for this reason, and I love it. I do like I know we talked extensively before about how a lot of the moments were chosen based off of the American books and the rationale behind that. And honestly, it's one of my favorite moments in the book. And I've mentioned a few times how Half-Blood Prince is my favorite book. And it's because of those moments of Harry and Dumbledore. That's what makes it my favorite. So having it featured so like crystal clear on this cover is just pretty fantastic in my opinion.
I'd agree.
This was, I mean, when I looked at the American book, when I got it, like it's very iconic in my brain, right? It's Harry and Dumbledore and the pensive, right? Mm-hmm. And then I guess subconsciously, when I first saw this cover of this book, because we talked about earlier how the American ones and the Spanish ones are sort of similar, I just assumed that it was them looking at the pensive as well until I don't know when it actually happened, but I looked at it closer and I'm like, wait, they're actually in the boat. And
well,
I hadn't just been checking out the cover that detail. So so this was like the first one. I was like, wait a second, it's not actually what I think it is. But I still like it a lot. So I say outstanding too.
Yes, I really like that it's showing Dumbledore, right?
Yeah.
Which I really like that the artist kept his face from the back cover of the first book. I think you can see it's the same character. In the Piedra Filosofal, Dumbledore appears in the back cover. And I also like that the back cover of this one, of the Misterio del Príncipe, is almost the same as the British edition. It's not pensive, or, well, it's not a pensive, right? But it's that thing. So,
I say pensive. That's what Jim Dale says. So that's what I say.
Okay. Okay. Yes. But I really like. I think the lightning showing Harry's face, Dumbledore, it's a good artwork.
Yes, I think it's outstanding.
I love it.
Yes. The new ones by Thiago, I think the ones in Spanish before Johnny Daddle, they are really good as well.
They are.
Yes. I would agree with that.
But I think for me and for a lot of people in Spanish-speaking countries, the Dolores Avendaño ones have that feeling of nostalgic, right? We grow up reading those books. So I choose this one over any other cover.
I've even had people message me that are Spanish speakers asking about, well, why did they even bother with, the Tiago ones or even the Johnny Duddle because they're just so ugly compared to the original. And that's the books they grew up with.
Yes, yes.
And it always makes for interesting conversation. And they're not trying to be rude toward the other illustrators by any way, shape, or form. It's just they're legitimately asking, like, do you like this? Because I think it's crap, kind of thing. And they're not. They're just
art is so subjective, right?
Right.
Yeah. We'll talk about Occitan again. No, but like I do think, Patricio, when you said the nostalgic factor, to me that's why I like the American original Grand Prix cover art better than any of the series, right? As a whole, like that's the book that is comfortable to me. That's what I grew up with. So let's say you read the Kibuishi books first and you didn't see the Grand Prix art. Maybe you'd like that one. Like,
right.
I think that has a huge impact. But again, art is subjective. So like, none of them are bad. They're just all different and they appeal to different people. So
Exactly.
So before we talk about where we can find us and our podcast on the internet, is there anything that you want to plug? Any sites that you want to share, or where can people find you on social media or buy your book even?
I mean, if they want to follow me on Instagram, where sometimes I share some pictures of my collection, is Coleccionista Harry Potter. Coleccionista is with one L, but two C's the second time.
Great account, by the way.
Thank you.
I enjoy following you.
Thank you.
And if you can't find it just by searching, I think you can go to any of our 3 accounts and just search for who we follow. Yeah, and it'll be on there too.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
If you'd like to get in touch with me or Carly or Melanie, I'm on Instagram at Nocturne Erik. Carly's on there at All the Pretty Books. Melanie's on there at The Harry Potter Collection.
Mm-hmm.
You can also find Dialogue Alley, which is this podcast, on Apple, Google, and all your favorite podcast hosting locations. We also have an Instagram page dedicated just to this show, which is at Dialoguealleypodcast, and that's where we're going to post pictures of things that you've just heard about, things that we've talked about. So check that out. I really want to get a picture of the Azkaban faces.
Yeah, I want to check my books when I get back now.
Yes, Melanie's got them both, so Melanie can put a picture up there. And we didn't have any listener mail time today, but if you ever want to send us an email,
we will answer it at some point.
We will, and you can send us an email. Send it to dialoguealleypodcast@gmail.com. So, and also feel free to leave a review of our show on any of the sites that you listen to. It really helps us out in terms of listing wherever we're listed. And it helps other people that are interested in the same topic to find a show that they would enjoy. So with that, I am going to say it is time to walk back through the archway into our daily lives, and we will see you next time on the Dialogue Alley podcast. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye-bye.